for making the time to come out on the presentation. We're good on the presentation?
We're going to try.
Okay, so be a little forgiving if it doesn't go as smoothly with the audio-visual restrictions that we've got. So with that, I'll turn it over to William. Thanks very much, William, for coming out.
Well, thank you for having me. It's my first time speaking to Parrot, Cove, so I appreciate that. I have with me Louis Martinez, our new building official, who's over here. And up in the projector booth is Mark Woods, our new code compliance manager. We can ask them questions later. But I was asked to sort of give you an update of what we've been working on since my arrival at the city of Lake Worth. It'll be 3 years ago as director, the 1st of May. And our biggest accomplishment was last August when we got the new land development code for the city. And we're going to kind of go through a little bit of that, but the whole emphasis was that initiative was to get things that are predictable, concise, clear, and for the general public and people who want to invest in the city to know how and what, when and where when it comes to investing in the city. So we're now at a point where we are trying to market and explain the land development code, which is called the land development regulations, and giving somebody an idea of what the basis was of that document and how it relates to what Lake Worth was, what it is, and what it needs to be in the future. So this little PowerPoint presentation, we've condensed it a little bit. Slow down. Part of what we heard through a series of over 40 meetings was that Lake Worth was unique, it was historic, it had an interesting charm and character, and it was a memorable place. So some other places that are memorable, this is St. Augustine in Florida. You can go ahead, Mark. And you can, this is another one. And when you get this is Savannah, Georgia, and what you see is a pedestrian scale, landscaping, intimate streets. You can go to the next slide. That one. Another one, it was actually, this is okay, the other one was Key West, Florida. So what we were trying to do, people who aren't as familiar with Lake Worth, is give them some kind of basis on which to understand where Lake Worth is and where it's coming from. And so now we look at Lake Worth during the Street Painting Festival, and you can go forward again, Mark. Lake Avenue, another time. Another one. Keep going. And what you get is a sense that there are some things that are comparatively the same between Savannah, Key West, St. Augustine, and Lake Worth. It's a sense of place, it's memorable architecture, memorable streetscapes, a pedestrian scale, and an intimacy that is not found in most communities. So the Land Development Code is developed to try to embrace those special qualities, enhance them, and encourage people to invest in the city. Go ahead, Mark. So some of the things that are also attributed to Lake Worth, we have the Lake Worth Casino, and a rather unique location. I don't know if you realize, Lake Worth has 5 waterfronts. It has oceanfront, 2 fronts on the intercoastal, 2 fronts on 2 different canals, and Lake Osborne. It's also basically right in the dead center of Palm Beach County. It has 2 accesses to I-25, a tri-rail stop. In the future, there will be intra-city service on the FEC tracks, and we're not that far from a turnpike. My little pointer is actually dead. It's just a great day, but it's Monday. So looking at Lake Worth, we have easy access to airports, the university, which is Palm Beach State College, or was, the ocean. We have the Department of Commerce that we're working on. I'll get into that a little bit later. And then we have an authentic, real, historic, walkable city. The population, and some of us will jump through pretty quickly, is about 35,000. The whole city encompasses 7 square miles. That's as of 2013. It's also part of what we're doing too is that you can go through all these marks, so it spills it out, is the artistic center of Palm Beach County. And that was basically made concrete when the Cultural Council of Palm Beach County came to be in the city, and the CRA started a little program. Many of you have known that for a great amount of time, there have been artists living in the city, fabricating art that's being sold in other places throughout South Florida and probably the nation. So we're trying to build on that intrinsic, inherent qualities of Lake Worth. Not only its historic character in the city, but its arts community and then the natural beauty, which most of you are familiar with living where you live. Your intercoastal view looking at the golf course, an aerial view looking at some of the houses, the pier. This is Bryant Park. And there's some key trends you might want to be aware of that's in Lake Worth. Keep going, Mark, please. And you can click 2 more times and it should open it up. The population is actually growing faster than was originally projected back in 2010. The population, as I said, is 36,000. It was projected that it would take it to 2030 to be at 35,000, and we've already actually achieved that. The general formation of the families is 45% of the population between 15 and 44, whereas 35% of that case in the county. Our median household income is $36,000 compared to about $58,000 or $59,000 in Palm Beach County, and we have a relatively young city, the median age of 34, and we have, as we're all aware, it's a very culturally and ethnically diverse community. The economic profile. You can jump again, Mark. This is from our business license database. Now, this is what we have as a record. I'm sure that the numbers are higher than this because we have a lot of businesses that don't have a license, as most of you have talked to me at some point about turning somebody in or asking a question. But there are essentially over 4,000 businesses in the city of Lake Worth. Keep going. Now, some of the things that we have in place now that are a feather in our cap that we can use to attract investment in the city is our Park of Commerce. We've adopted an electricity incentive rate for people to invest in the city, whereby if you generate 10 full-time jobs and 150 kW on the load, you can get a utility incentive for 5 years. We've adopted a confidentiality agreement as directed by the Business Development Board, which basically allows a developer or investor to come speak to the city in confidential terms, not have their information shared as a public record until they decide to make it public if they want to move forward with the project. And then within our redevelopment code, we've actually created a expedited development review and permit review. And the three components that work together to facilitate investment in the city is the comprehensive plan, which is the big picture of how the city is going to look in the future. The land development regulations which tell you how and what you can do. And then the zoning map tells you where you can do what. Here's our future land use map. We won't go into that very much detail. It's online. The zoning map. One of the significant changes that we made was that the single-family areas of the city got a lot bigger, and then we concentrated development around 10th Avenue North, 6th Avenue South, Dixie Highway, Lake Worth Road, Lake and Lucerne, and Seminole Federal Highway. Many of you did participate in the collaborative effort to develop the LDRs. We had, I said, over 40 meetings beginning in March of 2011. And the goal was to provide a clear, concise, consistent, and predictable document, which has been lacking in Lake Worth since at least 1985. Go ahead. So some of the attributes that are part of the LDRs is trying to preserve the historic character and neighborhood patterns that we have. We want to encourage sustainable practices, and that's more than just saving on electricity or energy, but it's also being cognizant of stormwater runoff and heat island effects, which is the amount of heat that's generated on the ground from areas that are of a dark surface that doesn't absorb the heat. Someone wrote me an email, Alice, is Alice here?
Yes.
Asking about dark sky. That's something that we're going to look at later, which is basically how much light pollution the community generates. We also want to stimulate a vibrant economy by having consistent and pretty hefty investment in the city, not only from the residential standpoint, but also commercial and industrial. And the most important part is having you, as the citizens of Lake Worth, participate in the process, understand what we're doing, where we're going, and how we're getting there. And part of this is to try to bring you up to speed on what we've been working on. So this little map that we did is that we took a study of all the properties that were considered abandoned or vacant, as well as areas that were considered woefully underdeveloped, that may be a location that somebody might want to invest in to do something. And all that green, that we just saw, okay, all the green there was areas that we thought would be appropriate for someone to do something. And out of all those green dots, we picked 6 sites that we thought would be interesting for outside consultants to study, to actually test the code. They were given sort of free rein. We said, here's the property we want to look at. Here's the zoning regulations. Come up with something that's economically viable and makes sense of that location, and let us know kind of how it would work. So site 1 is, you can advance again, and it's going to be, you can pop it 3 times, although it's going in. It's the Arbor Square shopping plaza right on the canal on Dixie Highway. West Palm Beach is already working on an effort to redo South Palm Coast Plaza. And we thought this site was interesting to look at because there is an initiative to widen the canal a bit and allow boat traffic eventually to go all the way from the Gosford to the ocean through a lock system that we would be hopefully writing a grant grant for in tandem with Lake Clark Shores, the City of West Palm, and the South Florida Management District. You can advance again. So, just to give you some little nuts and bolts, the area is zoned mixed-use Dixie Highway, and the future land use is mixed-use east, which is a district that allows commercial, retail, and residential. Go forward again, Mark. We can skip that part. So here's the site plan they came up with, and it's essentially a combination of retail and commercial on Dixie Highway, retail, commercial, restaurants, and office along the canal, and the inner area where that green is a combination of townhouses, and the bigger blocks are actually condominiums or apartments, and they're set up as a French parterre design. If you're into French or English land planning, a parterre is basically a garden type element. So this shows you how much green space could be incorporated within the development. The FEC tracks are on the left-hand side, and there's some more office and apartment along there. And this project was developed, and you can go forward again. Those are the townhomes, those are the condominiums and apartments. And this is how we did ask them not to do an architectural style, but just do a massing study. So this is how it could look from the air. You can advance again, Mark. We have a parking structure there, and this is a view from the canal looking over it. It's not showing up overly well on that screen, but it's a viable project in the sense that it meets the code, it doesn't exceed the code, it doesn't require any variances. It provides, I believe, almost 1 million square feet of different types of uses, and could make sense for us to encourage someone to actually assemble those properties and move forward with it. Can we move forward again, Mark? There's a little park there. This is just a street section showing how it might embrace the canal with an open promenade, restaurant space, offices, and retail along the water. The maximum height is 4 stories and 45 feet. You can jump, that's the section along Dixie Highway, which is in those 4 stories. And you see how the building kind of steps back as it gets taller. And we've also encouraged landscaping. Site 2 is near downtown. You can advance again, Mark. It's right beside CVS. Part of the property is owned by Compass, or actually owned by the city. We leased it to Compass. And the other part is a large vacant parcel by CVS. And we thought that was an interesting combination. Look at 2 different sites that are 2 different zone districts that somebody might assemble at some point, or the city could use as an incentive to develop this property. You can advance 3 times, and then go to the next one. So there's 2 different types of zoning in this location. The CVS property is downtown. The other one is, again, mixed-use Dixie Highway. The future land use is mixed-use east and also downtown. Go to the next slide, Mark. We'll skip that part. And here's like a site design. Where Compass is, or partially, is on the left-hand side. That shows a collection of townhouses or apartments, and then some retail, commercial on Dixie. And across the street is an office, retail, and commercial project that actually backs up to the back of the police and fire station. Again, it facilitates a great deal of open space with landscaping. It provides sufficient parking. None of the project requires any kind of variances for height or setback. So what we're learning from our code is that I think we spend a lot of time trying to make it predictable so that when something got built, you hopefully will be happy with what is put there. You can advance again, Mark. So the townhomes are here, which could be in apartments. This is the office retail, and then more around retail and office on Dixie. This is just a schematic of how it could look from a massing standpoint. The left-hand side is 3 stories, the right-hand side is 4. There is a parking structure sort of hidden in this one on the right. You can move again. The street section, which you've seen before, which shows a tiering as it goes up and the landscaping. And we proposed a median in this location on Dixie, which is still there. We'd like to have median bigger or longer from north to south. And then the other property a little bit farther north has a little bit smaller streetscape. Now site 3, you may have seen this almost a year ago when we were doing the hotel study. And this one had a different little focus. I just picked 3 of these, 2 of these, site 3 and site 4, but we did a study, I think, of 7 different sites. You can advance, Mark. This one is the Chase Bank site, and the study here was max out the code and build the biggest building you possibly could under our code that it would allow. So we have mixed use east again, downtown, and downtown zoning. We assumed that we've actually vacated the alley, and the person would have the entire block developed. You can advance again, Mark. You can skip that. So maxing out the total code, and under the hotel incentive, if a hotel has 50 rooms or more, you can build up to 6 stories, 65 feet. This building is not overwhelming. As you can see, part of our code has what's called an FAR, floor area ratio limit, which means you can't build the building straight up. It requires you to break up the massing and decide that you have this envelope you can build a building in, but you can't build the whole building up. So unlike some other buildings that people criticize, this one does undulations in different massing elements, not one great big block of 6 stories. Now, this is likely to not happen because, as I mentioned before, we asked someone to totally max the code, irrespective of economy or anything else. Whereas the other two take finances into consideration and make them as actually really economically viable. So in this case, we're trying to show the worst case of somebody we're really pushing the architectural code, the building code, and some other things, what might happen. And it still is a reasonably attractive building, and it allows for landscaping, which this consultant wasn't able to put in. And we can move on to the next one, Mark. Site 4 is where Wells Fargo is, down on Federal Highway. It's a long, skinny lot. You can jump 4. The same type of zoning in future land use. And so that building on the left-hand side with a parking garage behind it is what could be built there, maximum could. I can notice the big plaza in the middle. Again, the FAR, this study was allowing the building to go up fairly vertically, but it can't cover the whole lot. So there's a big gap in the middle where there's a plaza. You can move forward. That's a streetscape showing some of the buildings actually put in. You'll notice a tall building next to the Gulf Stream, which is one of the studies. Site 5 is, everyone knows this is the West Edmonds site. It's behind the post office, and it's right diagonally across from where Publix is. It's a smaller parcel. You can jump on forward 3. It has mixed-use east zoning and land use, which we've heard a little bit before. You can advance again and again. And this one has a little less intensity than some of the other districts. We have shown office and retail along 2nd Avenue, or professional office and office, and then housing coming down J Street and K Street with a parking facility in the middle of landscaping. You can move forward. That's just demarking. And here's sort of the massing. It's allowed to go to 3 stories. And again, our code was very conscious not to allow the entire block to be covered by a building, and you do have to provide a fairly significant amount of landscaping. One of the reasons for that, someone asked me that at a previous presentation, was we can't really change the overall street grid and street design of Lakeport. It's sort of set in stone. The streets are rather small and narrow. We do have a stormwater retention problem, as some of you know down Lakeside Drive. And so one of the things that was consciously done in the land development code was not to allow development that would actually exacerbate that problem and make the stormwater retention problem worse, or generate too much traffic so that our streets actually fail. Because we can't make our streets wider. We don't have the option like what West Palm did, was widening up to the boulevard and Palm Beach Lakes. We just don't have that luxury. So you can move forward again, Mark. This is the street section showing the 3 stories, where the 3rd story is pulled back a little bit, just streetscape landscaping. Site 6 is probably the most interesting one. We took a study around the Tri-Rail station, and one of the things that we worked with the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Commission to do was adopt what's called transit-oriented design, districts, and development standards, so that you can facilitate mass transit later on, or intracity transit on FPC. So we picked this whole assemblage of properties, including the mobile home park. And our code facilitates some incentives if you incorporate the station itself in the project. So again, it's TOD West zoning and land use, which is probably our highest intensity and density zoning district. You can advance, Mark, keep going. And so we actually created a whole village here. It's a whole collection of uses. There are offices along the railroad side, there's a parking structure, there's neighborhood commercial, residential, and commercial along Lake Road. There's a collection of either condominium or apartment buildings, some townhouses along Akron, and then a hotel project looking over Lake Osborne. You can advance again. This is sort of a massing element, and again, we asked them not to actually make any kind of particular architectural style, not to limit a design person or professional looking at it. This project here, if it came to fruition, would raise the taxable base in Lake Worth by about 30%. I don't know whether many of you know, but the taxable base in Lake Worth is less than $1 billion. And this, to bring this off, will probably entail an investment of between $200 and $300 million for the whole thing, which is over 1 million square feet. To just give you some idea that these 6 projects, if they came to fruition, could probably more than double the tax base of Lake Worth. So we'd be collecting more than, instead of $5 million in taxes a year, we'd be collecting $15 million. So it doesn't take a huge project to make a really big difference in Lake Worth.
May I ask you a question now? Okay. The last one you showed with Akron and Lake Osborne, from what I recall that area, aren't there buildings, residential buildings?
There are buildings there. This was all conceptual.
Right, but the city has, I mean, that's all owned privately, isn't it?
We don't own any of this property but one piece. It's conceptual. It said, what if somebody came in? This is what you could do there. It's all hypothetical. We still have to get somebody who's actually interested in spending $200 million in Lake Worth, which we'll see. If baseball happens, this might have more of a life. But we wanted to give somebody, if you could really think out of the box. We started with the pictures of different areas in Florida. Lake Worth can be built upon an attitude, and it won't be changed significantly. This property now, a lot of it is a mobile home park that's in major trouble from a code compliance standpoint. And the other part is there's a parking lot for Tri-Rail and maybe 5 other parcels that are relatively underutilized. So we tried to pick properties that were realistic in terms of they needed redevelopment, they're in kind of bad shape, and it wouldn't be a Herculean effort to assemble those properties. You can move forward, Mark. And there's a view coming from the northeast, looking over the whole project. And we did look at it as one whole unified development and abandon the road and put in a new one. This is a street section overlooking Lake Worth Road. The upper floors are stepped back. There's streetscaping that's not there now. And our code does give you quite a bit of encouragement to do arcades. And most of the buildings can get extra space to put an arcade in. Many of us like to walk around and not in the middle of the sun. So if there's an arcade, you can walk underneath that to protect from the sun as well as the rain. This is a typical section as you're looking over the lake, showing an underground parking garage. So we've tried to embrace the tagline, explore the endless possibilities. And we're working with 2 different, this is one of our little posters we're working on, Lake Worth Open to Endless Possibilities. And some of you may have already heard about the Art of Affordable Living, which we've actually made a tagline for Lake Worth. We're working in collaboration with the CRA, the Cultural Council of Palm Beach County, as well as our Economic Development Manager, Doris Key. You can move forward. So some of the things that, and some of this, I'm trying to canvas for a number of different people, so you're my first test case on this one. But we're trying to encourage people to look at our new website, which I think many of you probably have visited, and I hope that you appreciate how far the website's come from what it was 2 years ago. From the website, you can look online to development applications or permit applications. Every application from my department, which includes building, planning, zoning, preservation, housing, sustainability, code compliance, business licenses, can be obtained online, and they're all online fillable. You can move forward. You can get information about the building code and code compliance as well. As I mentioned earlier, what's primarily important for this whole endeavor is to make sure that our process is consistent, clear, and predictable. As I've explained to most people, if what we're going to come out the other end is what we expect, who cares how simple or how fast the process is? What's really horrible is to have a long, arduous process that nobody knows what's going to come out the other end, and when it does it completely, everybody hates it. So those 3 elements work together. We've also created what's we have coined a development concierge service, so that if somebody wants to invest in the city, they can come and we'll pull together all the disciplines in the city, the utilities department, public services, my department, to meet with them and give them sort of an overview of what hurdles they may face in developing that property, or what things they may want to consider in order to get it approved, or what challenges they may have from an infrastructure standpoint. We can provide expedited development review, and that is geared towards certain kinds of industry clusters like tourism, sustainable development, green research development, some kinds of manufacturing, some kinds of office. And the most unique part of our LDR program is that most projects, all the projects you saw, could be approved by one board at one hearing in as little as 90 days.
Permits included?
Pardon me?
The permits included?
And that's the approval for the development approval. That's to get it, so it's, that's.
Some people
to
can't put up a fence without waiting weeks and weeks and weeks for a permit.
I'll get to that in a minute, and I can understand your frustration. Because we've been working on this for a long time, we can shorten that. You can go on, Mark. I mentioned the confidentiality agreement, the electric incentive, and then what's also, we did a study of the development and permitting fees in the county. Lake Worth, you can advance, Mark. Lake Worth, for almost every type of project except for a strict one-story industrial project, is the least expensive place to develop a building in the entire county. From the point where you come in the door and want to get your permitting approved, to the point you come out of permitting and actually get a building permit to start your work. The graph, we're actually kind of in the middle there, Lake Worth. Palm Beach Gardens is significantly higher, so is West Palm, Wellington, and Boca Raton, Boynton Beach. The one that's closest to us is Boynton Beach, but our fees are still less. And what's not incorporated in here that most cities have is their development review processes have things called components to a project that help build and edify the aesthetics or the support the city. Well, we didn't know how to define what that was, so we didn't even count that at cost. What we have is called a sustainable bonus incentive program, so that if you want to build by right higher than 2 stories, your project has to have a little bit extra. Extra landscaping, it can be a green building, it can be a LEED certified building, it can provide a public amenity like a bus stop or a bus shelter, and those kind of things are concrete. A developer or investor can know exactly what they have to spend in order to get that approved. So we actually built that into our fee schedule, and it's actually in there, and so we're still less than everybody else. You can move forward, Mark. There's a little bit about the CRA if you don't know about it. Andy, who used to be, I think, your neighborhood president, was on their board, but it has the ability to acquire and sell property. They can provide incentives to attract development. They do construct capital projects such as the Lake Worth Urban Arts Loft project. They have money in the La Jolla project on 6th Avenue South on the railroad track. They have done infrastructure improvements on 10th and 6th. And they've also been able to attract a significant amount of private investment and also grant dollars, which the NSBT program was part of that with $23.5 million. You can move forward, Mark. This is their Urban Arts Lofts project, which you're probably familiar with, and we're studying a phase 2 of that. And so we're ending with, the open to the endless possibilities. Good question.
Yes. So I think that all this is wonderful. I really do. So you go to the building behind Publix or whatever, and you have that experience. Do we have any testimonials of people that have had this concierge service and this wonderful experience that you're talking about?
I'm getting those, and they will be part of. We're going to be putting this together as a narrated slideshow on the site on the website.
But is there real comments from people? Because
yes.
I certainly don't have those people.
La Jolla, Urban Arts Lofts, Lake Worth Villages project, all were approved in the 90-day schedule. Each one went to one board. Now, granted, they had to go to the city commission because they wanted changes to the zoning review, but they were all each approved at one board. When I got here 3 years ago, there was a project with the planning board trying to make an improvement to their already approved project, and they were at their 5th meeting, and I'm like, this is crazy. And so we have shortened that time frame greatly. The business development board has been active